What up everybody? I know that I've been fairly silent on my number one Dragon Lore project for quite a while, but don't worry, I have been working on it. Let me update you on all the drama that's been happening behind the scenes and attempt to increase our odds in the final contract to levels never even seen before. Some of you may remember this clip from a video I posted about 3 months ago. The number one knight was crafted by Drutter and he agreed to sell me it for $8,000. Then out of nowhere, a Brazilian dude came and offered him $16,000. Double my offer for the number one knight.
$16,000? It's more than it should be worth.
Which is obviously an offer he could not refuse. And I lost the knight. It turns out that Brazilian dude is actually the owner of the number one Dragon Lore currently and bought the number one knight basically just to stop me trying to achieve my dream of crafting the number one Dragon Lore and replacing his.
But it was bought by the number one D-Lore owner that was scared Sparkles would beat it.
Now, I'm not one to let dreams die. Now that somebody was actively trying to stop me from achieving this, I was more determined than ever. He started making a few videos on me and the number one Dragon Lore attempt. In these videos, he figured out that I had the skins already for a 20% shot at the new number one Dragon Lore. Since that video was posted, a Chinese individual actually used 10 M4A1S knights to craft another very low float knight that would be usable in my contract. He offered that to me for $10,000, and jumping at the chance to increase my odds by another 10%, I was like, yes, I'll take it. I now had a 30% at the number one Dragon Lore, the highest odds I have ever had in any attempt of mine, of which I have done quite a few. At this stage, I added my Brazilian friend on Steam, admittedly to gloat a little bit. He wrote back an incredibly kind message, but I couldn't let his kindness stand between me and my dream of the number one Dragon Lore. I let him know that if he was trying to stop me, I was more determined than ever to achieve this. The following weeks, I left some interesting comments around YouTube for him to see, which obviously got him a bit fearful of me taking his number one Dragon Lore spot, as he made a compilation of watching me hit some of my best contracts ever at really low percent chances.
Conseguiu a Poseidon.
Yes!
Nossa.
Let's go. That's so good, dude. That is so good. Let's do it, guys.
Conseguiu.
Oh!
Mano.
Let's do this.
E deu bom. E aí, mano? Inacreditável, cara.
But at the end of it, there was a surprise that I wasn't expecting.
Comigo, eu já vi o Handpixel dizendo que não gostaria que isso acontecesse porque ele acha o Flow também é muito especial, só que, mano, inegavelmente o Sparkles merece. Inegavelmente. Inegavelmente também que seria épico, seria algo muito da hora que eu iria admirar também. Eu não queria que a minha Dragon Lore perdesse o posto, mas se isso acontecer, eu vou ficar feliz. Não tem como, não tem como. Olha isso que a gente acabou de assistir, mano. Como que eu vou ficar triste porque o cara conseguiu um feito, mano, histórico? Se isso da Gangue já foi histórico, da Dragon Lore seria mais histórico ainda. Há quanto tempo ele tá tentando, rapaziada? Mano, que loucura. Eu vou mandar uma mensagem agora pro Sparkles. Sparkles, I know you must think I'm rooting for you not to get the new Dragon Lore top eye, and in parts, maybe that's true. However, there's no denying that you deserve it, and if you get it, it will be epic. It will be something that will go down in history. Sparkles, I'm a big fan of yours. I've always enjoyed your content. I've always been very inspired by your channel, and if it's gonna happen, it will. I'm not gonna wish you luck, but I'm sure that if you make it, yes, I'll be very happy for you, brother.
He was weirdly kinda half rooting for me, despite having the number one Dragon Lore himself. He then produced even more videos trying to theorize what the final number one Dragon Lore contract may look like based on the skins that he was finding in my inventory. I then decided to throw some classic English style friendly banter his way, which may or may not have been taken the wrong way, because he made this video literally translated to Sparkles tried to intimidate me. Now in this video his tone seems to have changed a little bit, stating that he definitely isn't rooting for me, but obviously you can't blame the guy. Why would you be rooting for someone to replace your number one and give you quite considerable financial loss? Not just that, but taking a little bit away of the sentiment of a special skin. Completely understandable. I asked him how much his number one Dragon Lore cost him to purchase. He told me $40,000. Definitely not cheap. However, when I did the breakdown of everything that I'd spent already of this attempt, all the skins that I will be putting in the contract, I realize I've already spent more money on this contract than he spent to get the #1 skin in the first place. This contract will undoubtedly be the most expensive contract ever to have been attempted in Counter-Strike's history. I prefer working with people towards goals instead of against. It's better to have friends than to have enemies. So I reached out to him with a proposal. He was obviously heavily invested in the current #1 Dragon Lore, financially and emotionally. So I asked him if he'd like to buy the #1 if I was able to craft it so that he never had to lose the title of owning the #1 Dragon Lore. He replied telling me only if it had a float including the 1337. This is obviously a part of his gaming alias, which makes the skin a lot more sentimental to him, the 1337 bit. And he even told me that he would give me his #1 knight to put in the contract if I promised to sell him the #1 Dragon Lore if I hit it. This was a very interesting proposal to me because obviously it increased my odds from a 30% to a 40%. I said, sure, let's do it. It's kind of like a challenge in a challenge, trying to create a specific float for this #1 Dragon Lore just for him. So I came up with a price which I thought was fairly reasonable, the old #1 Dragon Lore plus $10,000, and then I'd trade it for this new #1 Dragon Lore if I was able to craft it. So I did all of the research myself, I acquired all of the skins needed, and I put together a contract. And that contract gave me these odds right here. This contract had the chance of producing the P90 cold-blooded that I needed with the very specific float, which would, in conjunction with all of the other skins that I'd managed to gather so far, create a new #1 Dragon Lore with the 1337 at the beginning and still being a lower float than the current one, making it the new #1 Dragon Lore, with a float specifically crafted just for him. I attempted the contract with the goal of creating something which would bring us together instead of against each other, embracing teamwork where nobody loses out, and it hit. Amazingly, first time, almost like it was fate, the exact skin came out of this contract with the exact float that I needed, in conjunction with all of my other skins to make the #1 Dragon Lore with a 1337 float. The final piece of the jigsaw, or so I thought. This was the last video that he made on the subject about 1 month ago. He debates various options to himself and seems to have too much love for the current #1 Dragon Lore to be able to let it go, even if it became the #2. He's also, quite rightfully so, very scared of my contract going wrong and me not hitting the #1 Dragon Lore and his #1 knight being eaten up, minus $16,000 for no good reason whatsoever. We had even more discussions of the art of the possible. He asked me to consider the price of the #1 Dragon Lore minus $16,000 for his knight that he input. I wasn't comfortable doing that because I didn't believe that the #1 knight actually has the value of $16,000. That's why I was unwilling to pay anything more than like $8,000 for it. I thought he massively overpaid for this knight, and I shouldn't have to pay for his decisions because they came out of a place of trying to stop me in the first place. I was a little mad that I had gone to all of this effort, arranged some kind of deal to keep him happy, crafted a very specific float skin needed for this deal, of which I put quite a lot of time and effort and money into, but nothing had been confirmed yet. And with how long it had taken to come to any kind of decisions whatsoever, this has been months and months and months and months, I thought it was not looking likely that he would end up being involved in this journey. So I also had to tease him a little bit more in this response, where I wrote, I feel like paying $16,000 for the #2 M4 was your mistake, and I shouldn't have to pay for it. I know you paid it to stop me, but I cannot be stopped. I was waiting for him to notice one tiny small detail. I had written the #2 knight. He caught on and questioned me about it. So I had to show him this. I had acquired and crafted all 10 chalices needed for a 100% at the new #1 knight. No risk whatsoever, guaranteed replacing his knight, making his $16,000 purchase. Quite foolish, which it probably was anyway. But at this stage, I kind of had to question myself. Was this a fair and right thing to do? To put all of these 10 chalices together to guaranteed beat his knight just as a kind of power play or out of spite or something similar like that. That's not really me. That's not really who I am inside. It's not true to my nature. And although I'd gathered all of the ingredients needed, I hadn't yet baked the cake. It wasn't too late. I may have considered it if he still wanted to throw me his #1 knight to chuck into the contract, because then it would just be getting deleted anyway, so I wouldn't feel so bad about it. But if he was holding on to it for sentimental reasons, which he kind of seems like he is, then I was a lot more hesitant. He let his audience choose what he should do in the comments of his video. And reading these comments and not having received a message from him in quite a long time, I think it's obvious that he's decided to keep the Dragon Lore, keep the #1 knight, and not risk anything whatsoever. Just let me do my thing. Allow me to be a solo warrior in this process. You know what? That's okay with me. That's always been the plan from the beginning. And if he doesn't want to hop on board my ship, I'm fine with that, because it's still sailing to its final destination regardless. Then in the video, he went ahead and shouted out my project, Skin Search. This actually means a hell of a lot to me because he's exposing it to his Brazilian audience, and it's something I put a lot of time, effort and money into, and something I'm really proud of. Everybody in the team has done such a great job building it, and it started from me having a dream, and now that dream is taking shape and taking its form, and it's looking real good. So I urge you all to check it out. It has a trade-up calculator section, if you're into risky trade-ups like me. It has an inventory value section, where you can check details of your own inventory and see its real life value instead of its fake Steam market value. And its primary use, of course, is a skin search engine. It searches the entire internet for you, all the trusted marketplaces, for the cheapest possible price on your desired skin in real time. It really is an incredibly useful tool, and because he mentioned it to his Brazilian audience, and that actually means a lot, I'm going to keep that 100% night contract as a fantasy, and I won't bring it into existence as a reality. Instead, I'm going to be taking a far greater risk. I will be taking the chalices that were originally meant for that contract, and I will be breaking them down and using them in even more contracts. And I'm going to be doing that right here, right now. And I'm pretty nervous about it. Every single night I craft or attempt to craft, I will be very careful with the float that it doesn't beat his #1 existing knight, despite him snapping it up from under my feet with his huge bids. Ladies and gentlemen, it's attempted night creation day. Let's do this! In this storage unit, you will see a silly amount of chalices. Let's change that to quality, just so we can gather the true extent of the chalices we have here. All with very nice floats, most of them quad 0. These chalices cost me probably in excess of $1,000 per chalice, which means each contract we're doing here is going to be at least in the $7,000 to $8,000 range, and we should be able to attempt about 4 of them, which means like over $35,000 worth of contracts here. It's making me sweaty actually just saying it out loud. It's not just the monetary value that is so scary about doing these contracts. You will not believe how long and how many people I've had to talk to, how many discussions I've had, how many debates, how much money, time and effort has just gone into collecting these items in the first place. They don't exist anymore. The cobblestone collection is a very rare and old school one, and it makes everything a hell of a lot difficult if you have a mission like mine, which is a very costly long road. Currently, his #1 knight has this float, so we are trying to be careful not to beat it. The knights that we want to try and create have about 4 zeros and then a 2, or anything around this or lower is perfectly acceptable. But 5 zeros and a 9, we need to try and avoid that. The last time I attempted anything like this was about 2 years ago, it seems, and my incredibly lucky ass managed to hit 2 out of 2 of the 50/50s that I was going for, which is just insanely lucky. So let's keep our fingers crossed we get some of that wild luck today. You may also notice that my desk is pretty dirty. This is because I've been having some construction done and there is like actual dust all over the place. So I apologize for that in advance. I'm gonna go ahead and write night here, just so Gaben knows what we're after. Our first contract. It's gonna look a little something like this. It's going to be a 50% for a quad 0 night that will be usable in the #1 Dragonlord contract, a 20% at a very, very low float Mjolnir, not usable in the #1 Dragonlord contract, neither would the Poseidon be usable, but they'd still offset our losses a little bit. We also have, of course, a 20% R8 Amber Fade. If we hit this, it is absolutely ginormous rip, and with every single one of these contracts we probably have a risk of hitting something like this, something that is absolutely worthless and would destroy a lot of money, a lot of time and a lot of effort, and would hinder us massively on our journey to this #1 Dragonlord. This P90, for example, I bought off Tech Savvy. I believe I bought it for $2,000, just this one single item. Get in there. First contract up. I will have to double check these floats and imagine if I got something wrong. It could go very poorly because I could create a way too high night, or I could create a way too low night and accidentally create the #1 night, of which I said to myself that I would not do. It's looking pretty good so far, our first contract. Ooh, I am nervous. I'm very, very nervous. Contract #1, 50% at a night that has a low enough usable float towards our journey on the #1 Dragonlord. Mr. Gaben, I hope you can hear me because it is time. 3, 2, 1. Show me a knife. Yes! Let's go. Let's go. Woo! Okay. That's what we wanted. That is what we wanted. So now we have a 40% chance at the Dragonlord in our final contract. Oh, that's a relief. That's a big relief. 40% is amazing odds, and I could not be happier already. Technically, I believe I could have put all of the chalices into like a couple of contracts, and then definitely 100% got 2 usable nights. But where's the fun in that? We need to risk it for the biscuit, right? Here is our second contract. I've decided to go for a 60% at the night, 20% at the RA, a 10% at the hydroponic in very, very low flow. This may even be the #2 hydroponic. I created the #1 hydroponic. I already have that, so that's 4 zeros and 5, so I know it won't be the #1, but that would still be a very valuable skin to get. We may even get money back. And then we have a very low float Cinquadia as well. I mean, we really only want to hit the night. If we see the RA, it's going to be very sad times. Without further ado, let's do it. Attempt #2 for a usable night in our contract for our journey to the #1 Dragonlord. 3, 2, 1. Show me a night! It's not the worst outcome. It's not the worst outcome. It's not the night that we were hoping for, but I would say it is the runner-up. It's a little sad that it's not the night that we were hoping for, but at least it's not the R8. That's all I can say. At least it's not the R8. We have a 000111 hydroponic, which is pretty cool. That will be the #2 hydroponic, and hopefully we should maybe just about get the money back for the contract if we decide to sell this one. Let's calculate our third contract. Number 3. We are yet again going for another 50%. We could also get 30% at Absolute Garb. I believe it's our highest risk so far at Garb. 30%, nearly a third. Please, please no. We could also get 20% at a Wild Lily in very low float. I think that would maybe just about get our money back. The 50-50, the coin flip, here it is. I really need another night, I really, really do. If I get one more night and we get an overall 50%, I'll be a happy, happy chappy. Okay, let's do it. 50% at a usable night. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. No! 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 Ooh, that is painful. We've had a 50% fail. We've had a 60% fail. I'm kind of feeling like I should get a little riskier. I really don't know if that's a good idea or not. But I've devised this contract, and this is a 30% for a night, and our chalice supply is looking oh so sad. Admittedly, this is a little bit of a tilted contract. We have a 10% at the Poseidon, we have a 30% at the Knight. The really low odds came through for us last time, which we did not want them to. So I'm hoping the exact same happens this time for the 30% Knight. Let's count it down. I have a feeling with the 60% R8 that it might be pure pain this time as well. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Knight. Pretty please. Yes! Let's go! The tilt pays off! 30% Knight coming in clutch. Oh, what a relief. What a relief. There we go. Quad 0-1 Knight. We have a 50%, ladies and gentlemen, at the #1 Knight in the final contract. I could not be happier. It hasn't all gone to waste. That's such good news. For me, that is mission complete. I am happy now. I am satisfied with the way the contracts have gone. Obviously, if we hit those 2 other contracts, we could have made a 70%, but a 50-50 at the #1 dealer in the world, that's crazy. And I don't think we're quite done yet. I think we can probably attempt one more contract. So ladies and gentlemen, the final contract that we will be attempting today, I think in my actual #1 Dragon Lore attempt, I may just do a few more crazy warm-ups with a couple of chalices chucked in there to try and get some last ditch effort nights. But for now, for today, this is definitely our final one. 40% at a night that would be usable. 60% Absolute Garb. Here it is. All our low float chalices in here, ready to be eaten up by Gaben. And more than likely turned into an R8 or a Beta 50 Franklin. But no matter what happens, so far we have a 50% at the #1 Dragon Lore, which is unreal. If you've enjoyed the video, please slap that like button. If you're supporting me on my journey and you want to see me get that #1 Dragon Lore, then please slap that like button. Your likes are highly, highly appreciated, and it massively benefits me in the YouTube algorithm. For the 40% usable float night. 3, 2, 1. Emperor A1S Knight. Yes! Let's go! 60%! We have a 60% in our final contract so far for the #1 Dragon Lore. Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen. The 50% didn't come through that much. The 60% didn't come through that much, but take it down. Take it down to the 30s, to the 40s, and boom. Oh my goodness. I'm going to whack this in the storage unit, and let's have a quick look at what we were able to create today. The #2 hydroponic. Beautiful, beautiful. And 3 more nights to add to our contract. Let's change it to quality. We got 1 night here, we got 2 nights here, we got 3 nights here, 4, 5, 6, 60% at the #1 Dragon Lore coming up. Absolute insanity. I hope everybody enjoyed joining me today on my journey to #1 Dragon Lore. I will be doing a lot more in the upcoming months, I'm sure. Get this thing ready to finalize it and hopefully in 2024 create the new #1 float Dragon Lore. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take it easy, guys. Peace.